Well, hey. Well, hey. Check out the new style I display. So, how you doing? Secret Vault, yeah? He says as he can't get his chair to roll across the floor for some reason. There we are. There we go. Well, we've got a guest coming on in a few minutes called Phil Shepard, who is or was part of the charity effort at Redsands Fort, and he's got a lot to tell us about interesting things that have gone on over the years at that fort. So, what I tend to do before we get into that is we usually say hello to everybody. I'm trying to find the scroller. I'm like, my camera is just in the way of the scroller, so I've got to look around the camera to get to the scroller. But yeah, in the chat we've got Jackie Green's Cats and Things. Who was actually out with us the other night on an explore. So if you want to go and see what Jackie actually looks like in the flesh, well, she's not naked. You know, let's be reasonable here now, right? She's wearing clothes, but if you want to see what Jackie Green sort of looks like wearing clothes, then go and watch the video of the Salford Greater Manchester Police headquarters, which was a very interesting place actually, large place. Pompeii. Or Pompeii, G. Gibb, Andrea 73, Lost Souls Exploring, Natalie Lucy Ellis, who as you will see is now a moderator. Thank you for that. And Mark Urbex, thank you for your recent donation. Very kind of you. Louise Summers, hey Mr. Vault. Is it Halloween? When's that then? Barry Hensey, Virus Eater, Dazzy 84, Dan Did Not, or Did Know, depending on which part of the posh world you live in. Big Sid, Rick Horden, Lost Souls Exploring, Degenerate K, Steve Ellis, hello, Steve, was it Hons 3000, Jordan James, Land Romer, Bear Williams, Jess Matthews, Richard Morland, Jamie L, Exploring with Gav, hello Mr. Gav, Adam George, Mam Nan, Dazzy 84, Jesper Sorensen. I thought it was saying Super Sorensen then. Jesper Sorensen, Tom on a Mission, Karen Hoyle, hello. Way Past Point, Groovy Meerkat, Cyrus Carter. Let's have a look. Somebody just sent me a message. You've got to make sure there's nothing important. You are hearing me. I can see my my needle going on the thing, but whenever you get messages, you always start to think, don't you? Captain Caveman, Land Romer, yay. Who else we got? The Super Pop Bro? Oops, my screen just jumped. Ian Slater, Explore Norfolk, Simon BA, G Mac, Nick's Exploration, Thomas Kamudu. I thought it was Thomas Katmandu then. I was going to say Thomas Katmandu, but it's Thomas Kamudu. Okay, Andrew Clark. Yeah, Kurt Robertson, Southeast Rail Productions. That's a mouthful. Southeast Rail Productions. My goodness, there's hardly any space left for you to type your message at the end of that bit. But right, well, we are here to have a chat about Redsands. I'm still waiting for Mr. Shepard to come in. He knows where we are, but I'm going to send him a re-invite just in case he's hanging around on some other thing. And what I'll do is I'll put the banners up so that if anybody wants to contact me, my email address is me@thematthewwilliams.com. And if you want to like this video, that's entirely up to you. And subscribing, again, entirely up to you. It doesn't cost any money. But if you're gonna donate, I would suggest, rather than doing this StreamYard donate thing that's YouTube, don't do that. Do this thing here. There he comes in. So we'll bring him in a second. He is there, but I'll bring him in a second. And yeah, we've got this new system which is called streamlabs.com/TheSecretVault, and if you go to that, and people will put the links, if you donate via that, I get a whacking 100% of the money. Whereas if you donate very kindly on Super Chats, I get 50% of the money, and YouTube take the other 50%, which is a bit of a shit deal, I'm sure you'll agree. So that's why we do it the other way. So, right, without further ado, then I am going to see if this gentleman has got himself fully set up and bring him in. This is Phil Shepard, and I'm not sure if I spelled his name right, but we'll find out now. One of the guys from Redsands. So here he is, Phil Shepard.
Evening, Chip. How you doing?
I was thinking he wasn't getting us then. Right, not too bad actually. Yeah, how are you doing?
Jolly good. Not too bad. Not too bad. The car MOT today, and the guy was late to come and pick me up, so he was famous tonight.
Oh yeah, well
All
it
good fun.
always happens, doesn't it? It's always like right down to the wire. I find with these lives things. So yeah. So oh you've done the naughty. You've put yourself as a portrait instead of landscape. Ah, there we
That
go.
better?
Oh, it's
That
amazing,
better?
mate. It's amazing. I mean, you
They
were
got me
making
wide
you get
angle.
you get me thinking that you were like this sort of like thin sort of strap of a lad then, but yeah,
Yeah,
now
about 35 years ago.
yeah, I'm sure it's a
Oh,
tactic people use along with wearing black clothing. Look, to make themselves look a bit thinner. I'm not saying anything myself. Yeah,
are we ready?
yeah. So
I sucked my guts in as well. There
yeah.
you go.
So
Oh dear.
well, I'm glad you managed to get your car done and managed to get back in time. We could have filled in
Yeah.
until you managed to come on, but if you didn't come on, I'm sure I'd get a bollocking off everybody. But yeah,
Well, I know you're good at ad-libbing, Matt, so
oh,
should be fine.
I can talk for bloody England, me. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, no, no.
Oh, they should have had a job for me on Radio 390 Redsands. I could have filled a bit of broken equipment airtime there. Dead air.
I'm gonna do you because how many times I say it, you never say it right. It's Radio 390.
Radio
Oh,
390. Okay.
Radio 390.
390. Okay.
Yeah,
Right. And is that wavelength or megahertz wavelength? I think probably, isn't it?
that's old. It's in old money. Basically,
Yeah.
it's old money. Megahertz,
Meters.
yeah. It's old
Yeah.
meters.
Yeah.
390 meters in the medium wave band. There you go.
There you go. So, and you can see he's been to RADA to learn how to speak proper BBC.
Yeah, I speak proper, don't I, John? You know what I mean? There's you done. You could
Yeah.
cut crystal with my accent, you know, mate. Yeah.
And as you can tell, he's a character. He's a diamond geezer.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. I want to see this diamond geezer. He owes me money.
Yeah. So, right, well, introducing sort of Phil, I mentioned in the text for this up and coming that Phil was actually one of the three people that was, sort of behind a charity on Red Sand. So, would you like to sort of describe a little bit about what that was all about then and how that came about and maybe when?
Well, I tell you what happened. Many years ago, as all good tales begin, I started out doing sort of similar stuff what you do. We didn't call it urbex back then. This would have been sort of late 80s, sort of 88 through to about 91. And we were running around under the ground at Dover and finding all these undiscovered, uncharted places and stuff. And for me, it was just a natural progression, really, that I moved on to other things. And those other things were those rusty looking turrets out on the horizon.
Yeah.
And to say, I bashed a couple of emails out, made a couple of phone calls, and I was speaking to the chairman, a lovely chap called Robin Ackroft, who unfortunately is no longer with us. And we got on our house on fire, and off we went. We said, "No, what's being done to procure a future for these wonderful sea towers? Don't make me too big; it's horrible."
Oh, okay.
um,
All right then.
out in the out sitting on the horizon, and Robin was an ex-pirate radio DJ from back in the day. He's there is actually some pictures if you look out on Bob Leroy, who's a much lamented DJ, smashing chap. Have a look on his website, and you'll get a lot of the history, not just the 390 of the towers of us, and also of the radio broadcasts that we did out there to commemorate the Marine Offences Bill in 1967. And we broadcast there from a restricted service license, so not many watts. We were getting as far as sort of Canterbury, into sort of some parts of London and Essex and a little bit of Suffolk, I suppose. So it wasn't too bad, but yeah, we thoroughly enjoyed that. And we did that for 2 years running in 2008, 2009.
Mm.
Hence the remains of the aerial, which is up on the roof there, which is it's a crying shame because that was professionally installed. Robin was known after his radio days. He was known for going worldwide, sort of to developing countries and installing mostly medium wave stuff just for long wave, so they get the penetration out into the countryside. And he was putting their studios, installing their aerials. So natural progression was that we put a jolly nice aerial up on top of Redsands there. And yeah, considering that was what 12 years ago, since the last 12, 13 years ago, since the last broadcast, it stayed up remarkably well. And it only came down, I think, about 18 months ago, a couple of years ago, I think
Is
it
that the
came
sort
down.
of like circular type aerial that we saw up there?
Yes, that's called a capacitance hat. Now, with one of the problems being out on the briny, doesn't matter much when you're in a boat, but when you're on a fixed structure, the ground plane, I won't get too technical, but the ground plane, the signal you're chucking out, is affected by the tide, the level of the sea going up and down. And the idea of the capacitance hat is to sort of minimize that, intrusion, if you like, into what little signal you had. And we were only knocking out a couple of, I think, 2 or 3 watts. I think that wasn't a lot. And that was a problem. So the sea going up and down, and the capacitance hat, luckily, managed to sort of get around that mostly.
Mm.
But yeah, it must have been about 2005. Robin and I got together. Robin was a smashing fella, a very well spoken sort of chap. And he had some great contacts, of course, through the sort of music industry, radio industry, etc. But also he picked up on a firm called Molan Marine, which again, sadly, are no longer with us. Um, they were happy to supply us with cranes, etc. And we managed to get that landing stage put in on G1, which is the one he went up. And most of the metalwork from that came from the Millennium Dome, so it's just recycled from that. And yeah, that was all installed, and yeah, wonderful. We had a point of access. We chose G1. It's the easiest of all the 7 towers. It's the easiest one to resupply, and it's the easiest one to get to with wind, etc. It's usually the wind that's pushing you onto the tower as opposed to pushing away from it. You'd have to ask our salubrious tug skipper more about it. But again, we were lucky enough to meet up with a guy called Alan Littlewalt at the time, and he had a 60-ton ex-Admiralty tug, and he used to take us backwards and forwards out there, really for sort of costs. You need a decent-sized vessel out there when you're hauling all the equipment and stores and stuff up there to do any sort of works up there. But the place was in a hell of a state when we first went up there. It was about a foot deep you imagine 50 years worth of dead seagulls and stuff. It wasn't the most salubrious place in the world. And we had the unenviable job of shoveling all that stuff up into bags and bringing it home. But
Mm.
yeah, we managed to get the place swept out. There's for the radio, we rewired it for our generators and stuff. What we had up there, we rewired it all. Got some electric going up there and sort of brought some life back into a tower that hadn't been touched, as far as we know, since the late 60s, when all the catwalks and the ladders were pulled down by the Admiralty to deter people getting up there. Of course, during the 60s, it became sort of widely known. Pirate radio was quite the thing. The pop stations are remembered really because they were pop, and they introduced sort of 24/7 pop music, as opposed to the at the time BBC Light program, which was, you're lucky to get an hour a week.
Yeah.
On the BBC Light program, we now very reluctantly hand over to pop music for young people and the Beatles for their long hair and stuff. So it was quite a welcome thing. That being it, but people remember Radio London, Radio Caroline the most. Then Radio 390 was the third in successive radio stations to be out on Red Sands. The first being Radio Invicta in 1964. And then there was Radio KING, which wasn't a commercial success, so the plug was pulled on that in sort of mid 1965. And then a guy called Ted Albury came along with some backers, and they spent quite a lot of money on the towers. And they moved the studio over to its own tower, that would be G3. And it was actually air conditioned. They had 2 broadcast studios and a new studio built. So there was quite a lot of investment made out there. And unfortunately, that all came to an end well, I think Radio 390 stopped in June 1967. They finally closed down, and they were the last of the pirate stations to be closed down. Well, not even under the new scheme, which was the Radio Marine Offences Act, which came out in August '67, which shut all the ships down. How they did this, they prosecuted the towers under the 1948 Wireless and Telegraphy Act for broadcasting in home waters. And all they did with that was, opposed to taking the 3 mile limit from land, the crafty buggers, there's some sandbanks, which maybe sort of 3 or 4 times a year might be, uncovered by the sea. What they did is they sent the buggers out there with a flag and said, right, we're taking the 3 mile limit from here. And that successfully really brought the whole of the Thames estuary into a bay, really, all in territorial waters, and that's unacceptable. But the ships were soon to follow in a couple of months after that, and they were all closed down under the Marine Offences Act, which came in September 13th, 1967. But I've been running around out there. I stopped really having too much involvement with the project about 5 6 years ago. Unfortunately, I'm disabled. My health hasn't been too good over the past few years, and I couldn't get up and down the ladder so much. And I'd been a trustee and stuff for over 10 years. So I thought give the other guys a chance. So reluctantly, I took a step back. But unfortunately, Robin, our salubrious chairman, unfortunately, he passed away too, which was a bit of a shame again. So there you go. Future plans, I'm not too sure. I haven't really had a lot to do with the guys over the past couple of years, but I am making headway again and trying to get involved again. I think I've got more time on my hands. I don't work anymore, so I thought maybe getting more involved again. But the Redsands is unique, as it's the only set of wartime sea towers which are complete. Called Shivering Sands is still there. But unfortunately, that lost a tower. That was knocked over by a ship in 1963. But nobody was hurt, of course. So I'll come to that in a minute. To Redsands, we chose Redsands to preserve. Number one, it's closer to shore, and number two, it's got all 7 towers still there, and it's the only one left in the world. There were 3 originally. One of them, the Nor, was a hazard to shipping. That was hit on numerous occasions through the 50s. There was some loss of life. There was a caretaker crew out there, civilian caretaker crew, and we had some floods in 1953, which flooded the Nor. A ship hit them as well. Not one of the towers over. And unfortunately, I think there was three of the caretaker crew were killed then. But it was decided in 1956 that none of the forts were no longer of any use due to the nuclear age, and they were decommissioned. The guns were removed from Redsands and Shivering Sands. Funny enough, they were left on the naval forts. They left the guns on there, but a crane was obtained from Chatham. They took the guns off, and they were finally left to rot in 1960. They locked them up, and that was that. Until 1964, and somebody went, oi, upon the horizon, I'm going to set up a pirate radio station. What better way to do it than on a fort? And that's when Screaming Lord Sutch popped out and commandeered Shivering Sands Vault for Radio Sutch, which became Radio City. And a guy called Tom Pepper managed to get hold of Redsands, and that's when he started. He was the guy that started off Radio Invicta in 1964. So those 2 stations started out there, Radio Sutch, which was absolutely appalling. Their equipment was terrible. Apparently, there's still a flaw in one of the towers on Shivering Sands, and it's full of car batteries. And what they used to do was charge all the batteries up, and it would give them enough power to run the transmitters and the studio equipment for about a few hours. Then the signal would get worse and worse and worse and worse. Oh, time to recharge our batteries. And they'd come off the air and recharge batteries. But apparently all the batteries are still up there. So rumour has it. But that's out on Shivering Sands. But Radio Invicta, the chap that began the radio station, Tom Pepper, both him, a guy called Martin Shaw, who's an engineer, and another guy whose name escapes me at the moment. Unfortunately, they died on the way back to shore. They left the towers at 11 o'clock one morning, and they weren't seen, or they weren't. So Tom Pepper's body was found on Whitstable Beach, strapped to a plank the next morning. The other guy was never seen, and Martin Shaw's body was found on the north coast of Spain about 6, 8 weeks later in not a very nice state. But on the body, they found a small reel-to-reel tape, and it contained a program for Radio Invicta. So if you imagine, it just shows you what the currents are like around there that I've warned you about. That they fetched him from the end of the North Pole and past that, all the way down the channel, down to and all the way down the north coast of Spain. So it just shows you really the currents involved out there. So it's a very dangerous place to be. Definitely, there've been quite a few people that unfortunately have met their demise out there over the years. But anyway, that was, of course, when Tom Pepper died. That was the end of Radio Invicta, and then it became Radio KING. So one of the DJs on there is a lovely chap called Roger Gomez, a really, really nice chap. He went on to, I think, Radio 390 and some of the other pirate stations. It's quite funny with a lot of the pirate DJs. They started on different stations and moved their way around. It's like, I think Tony Blackburn started on, dare I say his name here, on Radio Caroline, but he ended up on Radio London. Kenny Everett, I think he was only ever on. I think he was only ever on London, Radio London. But yes, quite a lot of big names come from that era, come from the radio station era. So, along with that, the wartime era, and of course, I'm your man. My ears pricked up. I thought, yeah, we must do something. We must do something. So there we are, and fundraising, etc. Robin was very good. We've had our ups and downs out there with money, as of any charity really. And since then, as I say, not too sure what's been going on of late, but as I say, we did manage to procure even just to allow people to sort of see the forts safely from inside with what we'd done out there, that was it. And I remember saying to Robin that unless we get a very, very large cash injection, just enjoy while you can, mate. That's how I left it out there, to be honest. Yes, many happy hours spent out there, mate. It's,
Well,
there we are.
Going to say, if anybody wants to ask any questions or make any points, if you put them in capital letters in the chat window, and then I can pass those along. As I'm not sure whether you can see the chat window. I don't know whether you've got that open on. I don't know.
I can't see it.
No, it won't. It won't come up on. It won't. You'd have to have a separate screen open for it on YouTube. But yeah, because I don't log into StreamYard the way you're meant to.
Right.
I'm pirating.
Not like you.
I'm pirating StreamYard. It gives you 20 free hours, but I'm like, no, I'm going to have 200 free hours. No.
Yeah.
So I don't log in.
That doesn't surprise me, mate. Doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
Well,
it's all in the spirit, I suppose.
Best things in life are free, I say. So yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
But thanks to Natalie for a donation earlier on as well, and
oh, brilliant.
So yeah, these radio stations which are out there, the early ones. I mean, I don't know if you know much about their sort of, what made them tick. Then, were they powerful transmitters that could get all around the UK? Because I know Caroline used to get most of the UK, didn't it?
It did. There were actually two Radio Carolines, believe it or not. Now, God, it's quite nice to actually talk about radio stations, pirate radio, but I always feel like I'm boring the bollocks off people's the only thing. I mean, you get me in a pub, I can empty it in 10 minutes. But anyway, yes, they of course, all these commercial radio was very, very new to Britain. I mean, before that, the BBC had a monopoly, and going back to the aforementioned hour a week for pop music for young people and the Light programme, and that was about it. You had your home service, which was pretty much like Radio 4, and then the third program, which was Radio 3, really, for classical. So it was all on the Light program. People were starved. A guy called Ronan O'Reilly had the idea. He was a young Irish chap. Had the idea of introducing commercial radio to England in 1964, and also a guy called Alan Crawford, an Australian. Caroline was first on the air on Easter Sunday 1964, and Radio Atlanta followed soon after from another ship. Now, 2 months later, Ronan bought out Alan Crawford, and of course they had two ships then. You had the Fredericia, which was an old Danish passenger ferry. That became Radio Caroline North, so that was moved around, broadcasting as she went. along the south coast, which is very memorable to some people that followed the ship. They were flashing their headlights as it came past. Yes, we could see you on the shore. And that moved around and chucked its anchor down just off Ramsey on the Isle of Man, and that became Radio Caroline North. And of course, being anchored there, they covered Liverpool, most of the north of England, really, Manchester, etc. Leaving the Mi Amigo, which was the name of the previous Radio Atlanta ship, which was bought out, and that became the Caroline South ship, which was anchored just off of Frinton on Sea, down here, down the south of the North Sea. Radio London, which started in Christmas 1964. Caroline and London were the two main players. London had a very powerful transmitter. They could get most of the way up the country with that, and quite deep into the continent as well. Numerous other stations. There was a station off Yorkshire called Radio 270. It was more of a local station that to sort of cover Yorkshire. You had Radio Scotland that broadcast from an old lightship called the Comet, and that broadcast from either the Firth of Forth or the one on the other side. I can't remember what it's called. The problem being, if they were on one side of the country, the other side couldn't hear them. So I went to the other side, and then the previous side couldn't hear them. So they really didn't get that sorted out at the end, but they were on air to the end. And I think also, I'd say another proud mention should be made to Radio City, which became Radio City after Radio Such from Shivering Sands Fault, and the death of Reg Calvert, etc., which I can go into later if someone asks me and pokes me. And we got a spare half an hour, and everyone's still awake and hasn't decided to go off and watch something else on YouTube. We'll be all right. But I always thought I'm boring people.
I think you're all right at the moment. They're saying very knowledgeable and interesting. They're saying in the chat channel. And have I spelt your name correctly, Phil Shephard?
No, it's Shepard actually. I'm not a herd. I'm a pard. So it's Shepard. A-R-D. Yes, Shepard.
Oh, it's the double P, is it? Oh, I knew it. Right, I'm gonna have to.
Shepard, I'll have you know.
Shepard. Yeah, okay.
I heard a pard, not a herd.
Right. Well, I've got it.
Anyway.
I've got it wrong then on the title for this video, but I'll correct it later.
Oh, don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it, mate. It's all right. No one can find me with that name. That's good. They can't find. They'll never find me with that one.
So somebody who'd probably be quite interesting for you to chat to is Miles, who used to. He's completely barking, but he was responsible for building the transmitters for Irish radio stations, Irish pirate stations.
Oh, lovely! Yes, I would like to. I'd love to speak to him. Yeah.
Yeah, and they used to transmit from Southern Ireland into Northern Ireland with powerful like beam transmitters, and they would hit like Middle England all the way up to Scotland.
Yeah, directional beam. You just sort of stick it where it's meant to be, and off you go. First pirate radio station I got involved with was called UST, Underground Surrealist Transmission. So if you imagine a load of spotty 14-year-olds, with one of them a bit of a geek, that we made a little FM transmitter. We had a cassette, auto-reverse double cassette deck and a car battery. And we went up on the top of the North Downs in Kent. And we used to broadcast there on a Sunday night between 6 and 9 o'clock. Of course, you had to go up halfway through and turn the tapes over in the machine. But we went up from there. But we did that for a few weeks, and then we went up there to collect the equipment one night. And I'll never forget. It shows you how long ago it was. There was a white Sherpa van parked up with a couple of gentlemen in rain Macs, and we thought, they look like ministry types. Let's just walk on by and pretend we're walking the dog or something. You know, I don't know where Rover's gone. But and lo and behold, we went back later and the stuff had gone. So the radio investigation unit was working well into the 80s.
Yeah.
As we now know.
Bastards. Bastards. I mean, you know, like, why can't people... thanks, KLL, for your donation. Wow, very kind. Well, that's it. You know, petrol money. Why are they so?
Find a garage with any.
Yeah, Britain still to this day, right? I mean, they very much like they have a stick up their arse, you know, like the establishment about communications and about secrecy. You know, like they've erased military bases off maps when everybody knows that the bloody thing is there, and they still do it to this day. And
Mm.
you know, there's some places where they won't allow cameras in. You know, like you look at the Americans, they're like, "Oh, here we are, nuclear launch site. You know, let's take a camera crew in. You know,
Mm.
yeah, look, this is the button you push if you want to launch it." And it's like, you know, Britain. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
very hard to get Britain to agree to these sorts of things. And when it comes to communication, and especially music, you know, they really
No,
hated these pirate radio stations, didn't they?
they hated it. We had a Labour government at the time, Mr. Harold Wilson, and they wanted to sink the pirates straight off, but they weren't really going to do what the Dutch did. Now, the Dutch had a pirate radio and TV station uh, off their shores, which was called was it Rem? I think it was called the Rem Island, and it was an artificial island. It was basically built on scaffold tubes, if you like, with just a little box on the top. And they broadcast radio and television. They broadcasted some of the Saints, some of Roger Moore's The Saint off there as well. And that only ran for a few weeks, and the Dutch authorities came in heavy with that. And they had helicopters coming down on the decks and shutting the transmissions down and everything else. But the British, we never decided to do it that way. There were questions asked in the House at the time, especially with the forts. You know, who owns these bloody forts? What are these young hippie tearaways doing on there? You know, now like broadcasting, people might be enjoying themselves. We can't have that. You know, just not done. And so there were questions asked in the House about it, but nothing was really ever done. And it was only really the death of Reg Calvert, who was the owner of Radio City, that did really sort of kick the bums into gear, and for them to pass the Marine Offences Act. That Marine Offences Act came along in August '67, closed down all the pirate stations bar one, which was Caroline. They carried on broadcasting into early 1968, and they were happily broadcasting one morning. The transmitters were shut down, and two tugs had come from the Weissmuller company in Holland, and they towed them back into Holland due to them owing them a vast amount of money for resupplying the boats. And of course, with the Marine Offences Act, you could no longer ship your bread and your milk from England. It had to come all the way from Holland, even to the guys off of Rams in the Isle of Man. So and that's what killed them in the end. But as we know, they came back on the air again off the South boat, which sank in 1980, and off another boat, Caroline continued broadcasting until 1989. So there we are. That was pirate radio
Mm.
in England to a certain extent at the time. But no, they didn't like it at all. There was, as I say, a lot of questions asked in government over it at the time. You know, as to who owned these strange structures and stuff. And I think I said to you the other night, there were three army towers, if you like. There was the Nor, which I mentioned earlier on, which was a hazard to shipping. That was finally removed in '59 to 1960, and a scrap metal dealer called Lynch, I think of Dartford or around that way, went out there and scrapped them. Redsands, as we know, continued broadcasting from until June '67, when finally closed down, and then it was left. And Shivering Sands, bless it heart, I think they were closed in February '67. They didn't appeal. The only reason that 390 stayed on the air, they managed to uh, wangle it that they stayed on the air pending appeal. And it was only the appeal which failed in June '67, which finally brought silence to the forts. And they were taken off. But going back to what you were saying, or asking Matt about the strength of the transmitters, they on 390, when 390 came along, they had a specific tower for the studio, a specific tower which was G4 for the guys to sleep in, and you know they had G2 gun tower 2, and that had the transmitter on, and also they had a 200-foot aerial on the top.
Mm.
And that was guide down to the other towers. So if you imagine they put the aerial up in stages, and it was guide down onto the other towers spread round, and that's what held it up. But that was 200 feet high, and if you look on that Danger Man episode, not
Yeah.
so Jolly Roger,
Yes,
you'll
I've seen
see it.
that.
They sort of pan from the bottom. They'll pan up. But I'll speak to you later. I've got a better copy of that on DVD. I can send you. But the copy that's on YouTube at the moment is bloody awful quality, unfortunately. I think
Yeah,
it does give you the right
if
idea.
anybody doesn't know what we're on about, Danger Man was a black and white TV series, and you can watch the episode on YouTube, but it's called the Not So Jolly Roger, isn't it? Yeah.
That's
It
the one.
it is
That's
on
the
there,
one.
but I mean, I found it perfectly acceptable to watch it actually, both in vision and sound. Even though, as you say, you do watch the guy who's got his camera on a tripod, filming it off a
Tripod up,
screen,
yeah,
and he
yeah.
hasn't bothered to like turn the light off in the room, so he shows up. But
No,
yeah, the only trouble is as well. I mean, if I knew that bloke was who filmed it, I'd just said, turn it on to manual focus, you moron. But yeah, apart from that,
but
it
but
was still very
it's
watchable.
yeah.
Still
As I
very
say, that
watchable.
there was a hell of a lot of film out there, a lot of film, and of course it gives you a good idea of the condition the place was in 1965, which was a vastly, vastly different place to what it is now. Um, Along with Ted Albury, when he took over from Radio KING, spending all that money, they also got the wartime generators working as well, which are out on the northern tower. They got the central heating working on the towers they were using. They got the gas, the central heating all working, and also they had the Beaufort's Tower, which was originally the messing towers with all the kitchens and stuff. And they had I think his name was Cliff. I think he was the odd job man or something. But also they had cooks on there as well. It was a proper setup. So if you imagine a radio station on land moved out to sea and stuck on some stilts, you get a good idea of what it was like at a very, very professional station.
Mm,
And I hate to say this, and this is probably, I'll probably be shot to death, but I think personally it was the most powerful of all the British pirates of the 60s, to be honest.
mm,
What with their aerial and their dread transmitter being stuck, where they are. And also they used to compensate again for the rise and the fall of the tide every 6 hours. So, that's where you got it. But they used to broadcast not 24 hours. They were 6:30 in the morning till midnight. And they used to close down at midnight. And then from midnight, that's when they do any sort of engineering works and stuff. Some of the pirates managed to stay on for 24 hours, but 390 didn't. They always shut down every night to a tune called "On a Clear Day," and I can't for the life of me remember who recorded it, but it's a very salubrious song. And as soon as it comes on, you think, yes, Radio 390. But there we are.
mm,
But yeah, it's a very good station, all in all, 390. Not dissimilar to sort of Radio 4 with music now, but it was all sort of, piano, bit of jazz. A guy called Mike Raven on there used to do jazz and stuff. So yeah, they did quite a bit, but not a lot of pop music. So hence today, 390 isn't as well known or as well remembered as some of the ship-based stations. Unfortunately,
mm.
there we are.
Thanks to Catherine
There we are.
for the donation, and also we had another donation from somebody called Explore Norfolk, who's a regular. He said, "Mr. Shepard, one of my relations used to uh, monitor unknown and radio traffic in the RAF in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and enjoyed it.
No, good.
Did the MOD or our Soviet friends ever poke their nose in?"
No, not at all. Generally, as we know, the MOD are, if they can get out of doing anything, making a decision, or heaven forbid it costs them any money, they'll drop it like a hot potato and run a mile. And that's what they did with the forts. They just said, well, no, we decommissioned them in the 1960s. There'd been nothing to do with us since then, so they may sort of push it on to someone else. So it went around all the government departments, but no one was willing to actually go out there and stick the boot in, if you like. Mr. Wilson,
Hmm.
apart from Mr. Wilson sticking the boot in with the Marine Offences Bill. But
Well, yeah, it seems
that,
like the MOD, they build all these things and use them, and when they finish with them, they just walk away. That's it. So,
yeah, well, I haven't really mentioned much about the sort of wartime history and why they're there.
oh
Well,
God, well,
we've been harping on about the 60s.
I mean,
Well,
nobody wants to know about the war. They only want to know about pop music, don't they? But yeah, no, fair
no,
enough.
no,
Let's.
no, about that, really. No.
What was World
Uh,
War Two? I heard it was a record by the Beatles, wasn't it, or something? Yeah, right. What?
something like that. Yeah, it didn't
Yeah.
get very. I bet number 30 in the charts. I think. Yeah, I
Mm,
don't think it's very sought after at the time. But no, it just shows you if they built three sets of towers plus four naval forts, which were further out, it shows you how frightened we were in 1940.
yeah.
They were these were. a civil engineer called Guy Monsell was approached with general ideas of how we could stop the Luftwaffe at the time. What they were doing is they were taking off from France, Belgium, or Holland when it had fallen, and they used to go up to Margate, North Foreland, and then follow the mouth of the Thames all the way through to the jet, and then bomb the hell out of the East End. And that's how they did it, just by following that. Now, we put those forts there to deter them from doing that, and then hence from then they had to fly over land. And of course, we had radar. We knew they were coming. So luckily, we still got a pounding, of course, during the Blitz. But luckily, we knocked out a lot more aircraft than we would have done if they'd have carried on following the North Foreland. I can't remember how many. Oh, the forts. I think in total, it wasn't. It's not many. I think about 12 aircraft. I think in total were knocked down by the forts. So they were really more of a deterrent more than anything else to stop the guys following the North Forelanders navigation and going up and bombing the hell out of the East End. But that was the general idea of why they were put there. But if you think they were designed, I think 1940 and 1942, 43, I think the naval forts went out first and the army forts were second. I know Redsands was installed, I think, winter 1943. That was installed then, and it was maintained all the way through to 1956 when the guns were taken off, and finally decommissioned. Let's wash our hands of them in 1960. We've got a guy called Tony Pine, very good friend of mine. He was one of the engineers on Radio City, and he remembers going out with Screaming Lord Sutch uh, and going on to Shivering Sands, basically breaking in because it would have all been locked up then. And he remembers all the floors. He said you could see your face in the floors. They're all polished up still, and people going out there to do their national service. So you imagine how boring that's going to be, stuck out on towers. I think all they did was paint the place. So to show they didn't carry on, but there's been no painting apart from me and a couple of other guys since 1940, since 1950 when they were still maintained. But there you go. But yeah, that's why they were put out there. So the Nor was removed. Red Sands is the only one complete, and Shivering Sands lost its gun tower to a second gun tower. It lost that in 1963. So just a year before the radio took over. So Radio City always had to use their own generators and stuff. But of course, losing the northern tower, it had isolated it, and they couldn't use the generators, etc., because that's all located on that northern tower. You see.
Yep.
So there you go. But,
We've
there
got
we
a
are.
couple
The
of...
not.
Oh, go on.
Go on. Yeah, go on, mate.
I'll let you finish.
No. You carry on. Give me your
All right
question.
then. Right. All it was is thank you, Tracy, for your donation. That's very kind. And Tracy, photographer Jackson, and ALW. We've got a few questions, but he's asking. He says, "I guess you know Nick Catford, then, Mr. Shepard." No,
No,
he's not. No, he's not. No, he doesn't. No,
no,
no. Nick
no.
Catford is the Subterranean Britannica guy who takes photos of bunkers and that. So he
All
thought,
right. Yeah.
oh,
No.
so he has no
No.
idea who Mr. Nick Catford is. There we go.
Mind you, talk to someone who's getting old and his brain's failing now, so I don't know.
Yeah,
He might be one of those people I know the face of. I can't put a
yeah,
name to because there's lots of them.
yeah,
Yeah, we used to get lots of them out there. You remember me? And I sort of, no, I don't. That's, oh yes, I know you. When you
yeah,
see their face, yes, it's him. It's him.
yeah.
And that's when you know where they are. But there we are.
I'll never forget a face, but I can't remember the bloody names. Yeah, Peter Pryor is asking, is there still any pirate radios around today in the UK? And he says it's a great stream, so he's enjoying it.
There is in London. I mean,
Yes.
I've unfortunately had to stop working now due to my health. But one of the things I used to love doing is just driving along in the old car, just pressing the seat button on the FM and picking up some of these wonderful stations. There's one Magic FM, which
Mm-hmm.
is a superb little station. And if anyone should have a local license, local commercial license, it should be there. Absolutely superb little station, Magic FM. But there again, you get the same. You're driving along and you get the sort of like, yeah, Katanga, my friends, broadcasting from Lewisham. you know,
Yeah.
and what they do is that they're broadcasting from his bedroom in a flat in Lewisham, and he beams his signal over to the next block of flats where his transmitter is on the roof because he's not going to sit next to his transmitter. And some of the old boys, I think they get away with it for quite some time, these modern pirates. But as for pirate radio anywhere else, not really. The authorities are still down on you like a ton of bricks,
Mm.
and they'll fine you hard.
Yeah,
Not first
there
time,
was
but
one in
second time
Bristol
they'll
for a
fine you.
short period of time. It was me and my mates put it on. We had a pirate radio transmitter, went all across Bristol,
Oh, it's
only
good fun.
10 watts, and it just got everywhere.
Yeah, it would
Yeah.
do. You'd be surprised the penetration you can get
Mm.
with 10 watts. It's quite good. We used a device called an Optimod, and it really explains what it does in its name. It optimizes your modulation, sure.
Mm.
So it sorts out your peaks and troughs and just gives you more power, basically, on a carrier wave. But yeah, but as apart from London, mate, I don't know. I really don't know. There might be a few that pop up. You might get the odd one or two might pop up in Glasgow, all over the place. Could be any time. I mean, when I say going back to that one in my teens, we before we decided not to go and collect the equipment, we did actually have a phone in because we used to sit down the bottom of the downs at a pub,
Mm.
listening with a little tranny at the table, drinking beer, and then as they halfway through the hour and a half, someone would have to go up and turn the tapes over and come back. But there was a I'll never forget there was a telephone kiosk just right by the pub garden. We had a phone in one night after a few weeks. We had a couple of people that phoned us. I mean, Canterbury, mate, listen to you, mate. Absolutely superb top stuff, playing all sort of club hits at the time, But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I couldn't get in. I couldn't get me Mantovani on. They wouldn't let me. But I had to play all this modern crap. But yeah, so yeah, you'd be surprised. Some people do still scan the airwaves, and I think really now with the internet, and I think really it should be deregulated, especially the medium wave to a certain extent, because no one listens to it anymore. I mean, what's the beef about giving someone a license for just a couple of months,
Yeah.
with a power and monitor them? Why not give them a chance? Give them a chance on there. I mean, there's been a few good stations, medium wave, long wave since the 60s. Atlantic 252 was a good one, and that was around sort of late 80s into the 90s. That was a good station. I think that broadcast from Ireland, I think.
Mm.
But that was a good station. That was on long wave. That was a good station.
Well,
Yeah, I remember
Caroline
that one. That was
is
good.
is transmitting legitimately now from Orford Ness. That's where they're
Yes, one of mine.
transmitting from.
Yeah, I got a mate of mine appears on that. Trevor Adams, his name is.
Yeah.
He was the other chap who began the charity for the towers, Project Redsands.
Mm.
He was another one of the founder members. Was Trevor, and he's starting another station, legitimate station on FM called West Kent Radio. I don't know if he's on the air yet. He could well be on the air. I'm not exactly Mr. Current Affairs, but
Mm.
I think he could be on the air by now. And it looks like hopefully he should make quite a success of that. And that's a low power commercial station, a local commercial station from Tunbridge Wells, West Kent
Hmm.
Radio. But
Yeah.
you'll hear Trevor on there, lovely fella.
I'm being asked why am I looking between two screens, and it's because that's this. When I'm looking there, I'm looking at Phil. So that's and then when I look over here, I'm looking at the chat. So I'm trying to monitor the chat and Phil. And somebody says it looks like I've lost the will to live. Why is that? Am I falling asleep here or something? Do you think so? I'm not.
No,
I haven't
I
started
think
drinking.
no. I think they're imitating. I'm boring the bollocks off you.
No, no, I love this stuff. I love it. What do you want about?
No,
What?
I'm a boring
No,
bastard,
no,
mate. I
no, no,
know
no,
it.
no, no, no. Dave
We'll
Cashman
start,
says
we'll
this is a
start cars in a
fascinating
minute.
talk. We're getting loads of people saying it's a fascinating talk. Mm.
We could start on the cars soon. That'd be even
No,
better. We could
they
talk
do, what I'm
more cars.
implying is we've got some cheeky bastards who are often taking the piss out of me on my chat. So yeah, I'm trying to get a rise. Yeah,
Good on them. I like a good piss take, nothing like that.
yeah,
But no, I'll have to tell you. I'll tell you about Reg Calvert briefly. He was the owner of Radio City.
yes,
He was murdered in 1966. Murdered he was. Murdered it was.
yeah,
Cold-blooded murder.
yeah.
Um, now, what that was, Radio Touch was broadcasted from Redsands, and I go back to what I was saying about their equipment being a bit duff. Hmm. Well, anyway, they were offered a transmitter from a guy called Alan Crawford, who I've mentioned just now, who was Project Atlanta, who sold out to Roland R. Hilly from Radio Caroline. Anyway, he had a nice RCA transmitter to spare, and Mr. Calvert, who was managing David Such at the time, thought, I know, I'll have some of that. Is it all right? Yes, of course you can. So the transmitter was duly taken out to Shivering Sand. It was dropped in the water once, apparently, but I shouldn't say that. And anyway, it was dried out, and they began using it. Now, unfortunately, Mr. Calvert decided he weren't going to pay for it. Oh dear. Radio Such became Radio City, and Mr. Crawford is going on and on and on that he wants to pay him for this transmitter. Cries of diabolical liberties being taken and stuff. And eventually, it came about that Alan Crawford went down with a lady called Kitty Black down to Gravesend, and they hired a load of ne'er-do-wells and thugs, and they took them out to Shivering Sands late one night. They got onto Shivering Sands. They shut the station down, kept all the staff hostage. And Mr. Crawford said to Mr. Calvert, "You better pay me for this transmitter, or you ain't having your radio station back." And at that, he drove all the way up to Wendon's Arbo, which is up near Bishop Stortford. Had it out. They both had a bit of an altercation, let's say. And Reg Calvert reputedly picked up a bust of Beethoven or Bach that was on Mr. Oliver Smedley's desk, went to throw it at his housekeeper, at which point Oliver Smedley let go with both barrels of a shotgun straight to Mr. Calvert's abdomen and killed him. Oh dear, one murder, one pirate station murder. Anyway.
Yeah. So he ended up in jail for that then, did he, this guy?
He got off manslaughter. He was charged with manslaughter, and he got off under self-defense.
Bloody hell.
There you go. You'll have to look back on that one, because that's quite a good one. But anyway, that's finally kicked him into action in the House. And that's when they finally passed through the bill hurriedly for the Marine Offences Act to put a stop to all these pirate stations. But it was the death of Reg Calvert that put an end to it all. And that's what really did put the cat in the pigeon.
It wasn't anything, like that. They'd been planning it, and he was appealing it, and that was holding it back, and then his death pushed it forward. It was literally, it was just the fact that something big and nasty had happened, and it was quite public.
This was the year before. This was in 1966. I think July 66. I think summer 66. The murder took place, and of course the bill was passed the following August. But it did kick him into gear to do something about it. Yeah, definitely. But that was just over non-payment of a transmitter. And I'll let you know something. That transmitter is still there. It's still out on Shivering Sand. The transmitter that Reg was murdered over is still there. There's no guts in it, but apparently the outer case is still there. An RC amphiphase transmitter is sitting out on Shivering Sands, and that was the one used for Radio City, and it was decided to be left there in Reg's memory, really. But as for getting access to Shivering Sands, forget it. You won't get up on there. I know one fella who's been up on there, but he's the guy that shut it up, so he knows what doors and that are open and which ones are shored up from the inside with scaffolding poles. So there's no ladders or anything left out there now. There was access up onto the northern tower, the isolated tower, the generator tower. The Port of London Authority kept servicing that, and they had the tide gauge out there for the Thames Barrier. So they gave them warning when there was going to be a high tide or something coming through. But that's all done electronically now, so they don't need that. So it's been left. There was an artist called Stephen Turner, I think, spent a month or something living out there, and he wrote a blog about that. If you go online, you'll find that. His name's Stephen Turner, artist, Shivering Sands, and you'll pull up his details. But he spent a good fun few weeks out there, enjoying the loneliness and isolation. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it can get lonely out there, definitely.
Yeah, ALW is saying here he reckoned that the BBC used to have their own squad of heavies who were nasty people and who would intimidate people, damage and destroy lives. Have you heard anything about that? You heard anything about the BBC trying it on?
I know the BBC did have a lot of egg on their face, and they were not very happy about things. But I've never heard anything like that. I know pirate radio was active, even when it was legal, was sort of actively discouraged. That's what a lot of the DJs made a rush for land early in '67 before the rush started. So they thought, hello, when this Marina Fences bill kicks off, I'm going to be stuck out here, floating, bobbing around in the sea. I know, I'll toddle along to the BBC until I get myself a job. And funny enough, that's how Kenny Everett got himself a job, just by going into the BBC with a spool under his arm and all right, yeah, walked through. He said, he's all right. He's got one of them spools. He's one of us. And that's how he got in. So he got into the BBC and started off his lovely career from there. Much lamented Kenny Everett.
Yeah, it's like walking
Classic
around
film.
with a big beta cam with a big lens. They think you're one of them.
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's one of us. He's all right. You let him in. He's all right. He's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you are. So yeah, so a lot of stars continued there. I mean, there was one called Simon D. Never has someone managed to bugger his career up than anyone else than Simon D managed to. And he started out. He was the first voice to be heard on Radio Caroline in 1964, and he ended up having his own television show and everything. And I don't know why, but he fell out of favour. Late '60s, and I think he ended up as a taxi driver, something like that, But he really was quite a star in his day, Simon D. And he started on Radio Caroline. But as I say, he definitely didn't continue his star-studded career for sure.
Mm.
There we are.
Another question here from HTE fan. He says, "Do you know Margaret Flo McEwen?" I wouldn't.
I've not met her. I think I might have spoken to her once.
Yeah, I have no idea. No idea who that is. Was she one of the broadcasters?
She's had something to do since my demise, if you like, on Redsands, Project Redsands. I know she's had a lot to do with that, but I know it did get quite political out there. And when I start hearing politics and that come into it, and people are not getting on with him because he's like that, I don't get on with him because he's like that, and they don't talk to him, and that's when I drop it like a stone and walk off, because that's the last thing I want to get involved with. Unfortunately, with those towers out there, a lot of the time people's egos can get the better of them, is all I'll say. And sometimes they're there for the good of their ego and not there for the good of the towers. And as I always said for Robin, I'm here for these towers. There's no other reason for me to be here. I'm here to try and preserve what I can out here. And that's it. And that's been my motto. As I say, it's unfortunate sometimes ego and politics get in the way of anything, really. You see a lot of these railway preservation societies basically fall apart at the seams just because, that's Dick, he fell out with Alan, and Alan don't talk to Mick anymore, and then Mick don't talk to John, and basically the whole thing's bloody ruined just down to where you go in politics, and that's such a shame. A lot of preservation projects like that.
Yeah. And by the way, yeah, if you want to ask us any questions, if you put them in capitals, it makes them stand out for me. So differentiate between questions and when you chat in the group amongst yourselves. So when there's another one, Steve Ellis. When was the last time there was a special event? I think he means to say event ham station out there.
2009. We were. Hang on a minute. That was the first year. That was 2008. I think it was 2008, 2009. 2009. So that's what's that? 11, 12 years ago. That was the last time an RSL was done out there. But yeah, we a guy called Bob Leroy. He was responsible for all the programming and stuff, and went out as Redsands Radio. But as I say, if you Google Redsands Radio, you'll be ushered along to my dear friend Mr. Leroy's site, and you can spend many happy hours in there looking all through his photos, and there even might be some of me in there as well. So watch out.
I should have thought about this actually, because I could have taken my transmitter out there and I could have transmitted technically from land, because I haven't got an advanced license, so I'm not allowed to transmit from a boat, because it's like some reason is very, very different if you're on land to on a boat. So but if I was technically on land, Redsands, I could have transmitted to all those people who like doing these squares, who like picking up which square you're transmitting from, and that would be that would be an extremely prized square.
Yeah, That'd give us something to do as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, a square that you really can't get to, even if you got a boat. To be perfectly honest, it's not even easy if you got a boat. So yeah,
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 yeah, that's all fun, isn't it? That's all fun.
yeah. So if I go back
Yeah, it's
out
all
there,
fun.
I might consider taking a little battery of my transmitter, and we'll see what I can do. I'll make some
Yeah,
people's days. I'll just go out there. I have to remember how to bloody do it because the way you do it for Worked All Britain, it's called, is like they've got these people are listening, but you put it on their website first. You say like I'm going to be in this location at this time. Tune in, and they're all there, and then they're chomping at the bit, and they're all like clambering on top of each other's signals, like speak to me,
yeah,
because they want to get that square.
yeah. That's the one. Well, that sort them out, won't it?
Yeah.
And I'll set up at Whitstable and jam you.
Oh well. Yeah.
Bit of
Ah, but
jamming,
we can change frequencies, if we get that sort of trouble.
Yeah.
You'll be
I'll,
jamming us
I'll
whilst
probably.
we'll have moved on.
I'd have got bored by that point. I'd have gone down the pub by that time anyway.
Hmm.
I'll be in in the Neptune having a beer.
Yeah. All
I've
right.
lost my lighter. But
Somebody's asking when am I going to Sealand? Well, I should contact them really and ask them whether I could get up there and go on. But
hmm,
I'm sure a bit of cash, sort of like offer of cash would grease those cogs, to get them to
yeah,
let me on.
just give him the fucking money. Give him the fucking money. Give it to him now.
Yeah.
There you go. It's my Bob Geldof impression.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but HTE fan has asked the same question again, but he already answered you. Does he know Margaret Flo McEwen? And he did answer you, so you'll have to rewind and listen to it. Okay. Oh, this is now
Get back again.
somebody earlier on asked a question, and I remember it going up,
Yeah.
and I forgot to
Yeah.
ask it, and it's fairly similar to this one from Greyhound Daddy, but it was basically like when you have bad weather out there, do they shake the
Yeah.
forts? Hmm.
Yeah. Um. Right, I should try and come out of boredom mode, but the legs of those towers are in fact hollow. So you've just got concrete and rebar going through them. Now, you've on the gun towers, you had a 3.7-inch gun. Now, a 3 ever it's like that. So if you imagine the you get and the recoil coming off the gun, there has to be a certain amount of elasticity within that structure to transfer it down to the seabed because you don't want it transferred to the structure itself. So the legs were in fact made to give with the recoil of the guns. So yes, they do move. And if you're out there in heavy weather, I mean, I've been out there um, sleeping in a storm, and we could feel. You can actually feel the tower doing this, moving about a bit like that
Mm, mm,
as it does. That's quite normal. A little bit off-putting to begin with, but yeah, quite normal. And then, so when the generators go off and you're plunged into darkness, all you've got is your little torch and your little gas lamp. It can be quite eerie out there as well, to be honest, because all you can hear is the sea and the bell on the northern buoy. You've got the North Buoy, and you hear this clang, clang, clang. So it's yeah, it's quite an atmospheric place. But again, it was great when we closed the radio station down for the night when we were doing that. We'd all go and congregate up on the top deck there and watch the sun go down over the horizon, sipping a beer, and you sort of think there's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be rather than sat up here with a load of mates, sipping beer, and then looking forward to another day's broadcasting the following day. Yeah, it was good fun. Yeah, good
mm.
fun.
And did you have you had a generator for that then when you were doing your transmissions, or were you running off
Yeah.
battery?
Oh yeah.
Battery, yeah.
No, we had two big diesel generators, one to keep online and one standby at the time, and a small petrol one which sort of worked once, I think, and never worked again. But no, we had two big diesels up there at the time. I don't think they're there anymore. I don't think they're there now. I think they've been removed. But during the radio days, as I say, two big diesels up there. But
Mm.
the whole of the that's why I said don't go in the the boiler room. As I say, we put the generator in there, and there's all these sort of bits of shale of steel coming off. And you're thinking that's going to go through the floor there in a minute. So yeah, we decided to move them from there because that wasn't a good idea.
Mm, mm,
You'll notice that all the decks and stuff are all covered in a thick coat of asphalt, which has preserved them quite well. Of course, in the boiler room, you don't want asphalt on the floor because it's going to melt. So it was just plain steel, and unfortunately, that's plain steel now is beginning to give up.
Yeah.
And you'll notice if you go underneath the other towers and look up, you'll see the underneath of some of the boilers as they're falling through the floor,
Mm.
just on that one patch, because there's no asphalt preserving the deck or preserving that. But the decks are all half-inch thick uh, armor plate, and then the verticals, the walls and stuff, were quarter-inch armor plate, and they look, as you know, absolutely knackered. Structurally, believe it or not, they're bloody good because it's only the outer panels which are corroded. The inner ones, bit surface rust, all right. But we had divers go down to assess the condition, sort of under the water line, and surprisingly very very good indeed. Uh, I didn't mention how they were actually installed. They were built on the Red Lion Wolf site up in Gravesend. They were constructed tower by tower, and at night they were lashed to two tugs, and they were floated out. The Where the legs go down under the water, it's a shape of what's called an Oxford picture frame. And if you imagine an Oxford picture frame is like this, but you haven't cut the bits off. If you imagine, just like that, and it goes across. So you've got your two uprights like that, and you've got a horizontal like this, and the legs are down like. So imagine an Oxford picture frame. So they're all sat on top of that. Now a hydrographer had gone out there and he said, "Oh yes, very good place to be. Let's put them here on Redsands," and that's why they're sat on top of a sandbank. But we sent a diver down, and the condition underneath the water is surprisingly good, very good indeed, very
Yeah.
very good.
But
Of course,
they
the
were they
options
were
don't
actually
get to it. But
floated out there, and then they released valves and basically filled up the. Was it concrete they were floated out, or was it metal at the
yes,
base?
yeah, the pontoons on the naval, they had two pontoons, and then I say on the army forts, you had like an Oxford picture frame. Same
Yeah.
thing. They had various seacocks over there, and then it was gradually lowered down onto the seabed. Boom. The first
Mm.
tower to be taken out there, you had four gun towers, which had the 3.7-inch guns on that I mentioned. You've got the central tower, which is what's called the control tower. Now, on the control tower, you had the radar set up, and then you had what they called a predictor, Sperry predictor. And then you'd look out, you'd see some aircraft, you'd work out how far away they were, what height they were, blah, blah, blah. So then you'd be able to work out where to point your guns. 3.7-inch guns aren't the fastest thing in the world to reload. So the Bofors tower is what it is. He had some Bofors guns mounted on it. So if you imagine on the Bofors tower, you see it's got these two little ledge things that stick out. The Bofors guns were sat on those little ledges, and they were put out there. First of all, the Bofors tower was installed, the first tower, because it was the one most likely to be able to defend itself should it come under fire from aircraft or submarines or ships. It already had its guns all there and all up and working. So the Bofors tower went out there first, and then I think it was control, and they put the gun towers in, blah blah blah, and then bring it all up with the northern tower supplying the power from the diesel engines on there. The generators were Gardner's, I think 6LGWs. They're a six-cylinder Gardner engine anyway, but it's as fitted to some buses. They were bus engines basically. They're still there apparently. We A guy went up there a few years back and had a look around. There's a table in the middle of the hall where the generators are. I've got a picture of that table in 1968, and I've got a picture of that table taken about 8, 9 years ago now, and all the stuff on that table hasn't moved since 1968. There you go.
Mhm.
And that's on the northern tower. But apparently there are muted. I'd like to speak to the chap, but there's a chap that he's speaking to the authorities at the moment. He's going to take the northern tower under his wing and restore that one, which would be absolutely marvelous news. If I hear that something's been done out there, that'd be marvelous,
Mm.
absolutely great. If he's got the money to do it as well, that's good. I mean, there's
Yeah.
one thing that Project Red Fan we always kept our noses clean with the authorities, Port of London, Department of Environment, and that. We always made sure we told them what we were doing, etc., etc. To
Yeah,
keep our
because
noses clean.
another question that somebody asked I forgot was who owns them now? Who owns them per se? Mm.
don't know. This question was asked during the 1960s. The MOD said nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
No, we decommissioned them in the 1960s. Nothing to do with us, mate. Now, no.
So if
So
the
no.
charity is kind of, set up to take money and look after them, then it's a bit of a precarious situation, really, because I mean, if they were to do them up to such an amazing standard, somebody might come along and say, well, actually, they belong to us and want them back.
I think you have to be recognised by government, because
Mm,
if we had just gone out there and started to lay claim on that, they'd have gone mad. They'd have chucked us off it. But
mm,
because Robin, great fella, he cleared it all with the Port of London and Department of Environment and that, we actually have permission to go out there and do something. And I think that is the main thing you need, because as you know, there's a lot of river police out there. They'll have you off there in 5 minutes if you get seen. To be careful.
mm.
But say that they'll chuck you off there. But no, it's if they say something's been done with that Northern Tower, that'd be absolutely news to my ears. Been marvelous, marvelous news.
Mm.
Great stuff. Be nice to see it move on a bit. Really would.
Yeah. Somebody G8 Sierra Bravo Sierra is saying so radio ham sort of call signs these are, by the way, if anybody doesn't know. He says, Matt, did I know that David Such was a radio ham? I didn't, but now I do. Did you know, Phil? He was a radio ham?
Ham,
Bloody
ham.
hell.
Don't know.
Mm.
Don't know. He might have done some broadcasting on shortwave, but no, he was medium wave. Yeah, he was
Yeah,
medium
no,
wave. Radio
but
Touch.
actually as a private, sort of hobby.
Oh, he
Yeah,
he could have done. He had
yeah.
his fingers in many pies. As we know, he's a very colourful character, was David Such,
Yeah,
to
he'd
say the
have to
least.
be quite smart because back in the day, you had to learn how to do Morse code in order to be a radio ham. So they didn't just give out licenses like they do today to idiots like
No,
me.
no,
Because I would
no.
refuse. I'm like, I'm not interested in doing anything radio ham if I have to do Morse by hand.
Mm,
I don't mind with a
yeah,
computer, but not by hand. No.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. I can concur with that. But
Yeah.
no, he was out there for about 6 months, I think, before Reg Calvert took over and it became Radio City. I think Radio Such was about for about 6 months, but I think David Such just got bored with it in the end. I
Mm.
think after about 6 months, the novelty had worn off, and I don't think he was getting so many ladies coming up to see him, so he decided to arch its back up to land and went on from there. I think, but
Well,
then there's Reg Calvert took over.
yeah, well, the reality of running something on a fort like that, is, I mean, you've got to get your supplies. I mean, food, like clean water, and fuel is a massive one. I mean, you are chucking fuel through those generators, and that has to be constantly resupplied. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not a hobby. It's more of a bloody occupation, isn't it? It's like a
Mm,
full time
mm,
occupation doing it.
mm.
So
Thing was, though, I mean, back in the 60s, of course, the main thing with a fort was a lot cheaper to run than a ship. You
mm,
weren't paying for so much crew. That was the thing. You're not paying for so much crew, etc. So basically, it's the same as being on land. You just got a bit of a bridge to bring your stuff over. And of course, with a ship, you're sort of bucking around and all this. The forts are a lot more comfortable too. It's quite funny that I think Keith Skews and another member of Radio London um, went out to Shivering Sands in 1966 with a view of purchasing it for Radio London, and it was going to be called UKGM, and it was going to be the same Radlon sales that ran Radio London were going to run this station. Apparently, Keith Skews and I can't remember another chap went out there, and they came back. Anyway, the deal didn't go through, and from then on, in Radio London circles, Radio City was known as Radio Shitty. So I think they got used to so much more, but better, on the ship they used to get a lot more, and going out there onto those towers and all the rust and decay, that's where it became known as Radio Shitty. But anyway, the deal didn't go through, nevertheless. Uh,
yeah, it's funny doing deals on a radio station that shouldn't actually be there. It's like, oh yeah, selling. It's like selling drugs, isn't it? It's like it's not. You're not supposed to be doing it, but you can sell it. You can buy and sell
no,
it. Yeah.
but because it was a new thing. I mean, both Radio London and Caroline. I mean, that they had accounts with a lot of the big players at the time, a lot of the big advertising houses. Saatchi, they used to book a load of time on Radio London.
Mm.
and also on these stations to build up their revenue to allow them to broadcast pop. They used to broadcast a lot of religious programming as well, which of course is unheard of these days on any mainstream channels that we have. But back in the 60s, it was quite commonplace. Radio London, it was called The World Tomorrow, and it would all be sort of hellfire and damnation, boy, and all this sort of stuff. But a lot of the money came from America, but a lot of these 60s pirates were broadcasting this religious stuff. And that's really what kept them afloat. It wasn't just the advertising revenue, it was broadcasting this religious programming as well, which kept them going. They
Mm.
wouldn't have been able to carry on. They wouldn't carry on otherwise, a lot of them.
Yeah.
But you get 2 hours of Mr. Preacher, and now we hand you back to the Rolling Stones.
Mm-hmm.
The source of all this sin and deprivation in the world? Let's put the Stones on.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Stinging in the Rain asks, what are your thoughts on the film The Boat That Rocked?
Great film. Great film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knew quite a few of the people that made that tick. A lot of it was filmed on the Caroline ship, the Ross Revenge, which is still preserved to this day by enthusiasts. One thing I've never done actually go on the Ross Revenge, but Trevor Adams, the guy I was mentioning before, that we began the charity with Robin, Trevor and I began the charity with. He's again had a lot to do with the boat that rocked and getting them on to use the ship and whatnot. But no, cracking film, great film.
Mm.
It really gives you an idea of. I think it captured the ambience and whatnot of what it was like. I mean, there's nothing. You imagine sitting out on a calm sea on a summer night, valves glowing in front of you, playing your favourite records to a positive audience. What more? I mean, that's heaven, isn't it? That's
Mm.
got to be heaven.
Mm.
And nothing more romantic. Nothing could be more romantic than that, could it? Playing
Yeah.
your favourite records to a closed audience, sitting on a ship, lovely,
Mm.
beautiful. They're glowing valves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nice warm, warm your hands on the equipment. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the deal with this ship then? Can people go and see it somewhere? The Caroline ship,
Uh,
the Ross
I
Revenge or
don't
something?
know. It is preserved. It moves about a bit. It was in Shephy for a while, and I think it's not there now. It's been moved. I think a call to Mr. Google will to give you your answers that you require on that one. Because as I say, I'm not exactly Mr. Current Affairs, and
Oh
I
well, yeah,
spend quite a lot of time due to my illness. I spend a lot of time in and out of bed. So,
yeah,
and unfortunately, when I go into bed, that's it. That's my
yeah,
own little world in there. I don't get involved with the outside world.
yeah. We're taking a lot of questions here, but I mean, have you got any things you want to sort of cover before and I'll just carry on with asking some questions because there's
No,
lots of them here.
just
Yeah,
do some
lots of
questions. I just
questions.
don't want to. I don't want to bore the proverbials off people.
Well,
That's what
they're
I get
asking
frightened of.
them. They're asking them. So
Well,
if you're
you
happy
keep
to keep
you keep ask you keep
keep
asking,
yeah,
you keep
right then.
asking. I'll keep boring.
Okay then. Well, Stephen YEMC or Stephen Yemk says, "Have you ever seen any sparks or plasma from the antennas?"
Not with what we were broadcasting, but again, I'm in contact with quite a few sort of 1960s DJs and engineers at the time, and apparently, if you've got a fluorescent tube and just stood a tube up like that, it'll light next to an antenna on a ship. That's the amount of power RF you're giving out.
Yep.
Um, Also, I mean, there's tales of during the 60s, especially on G2, where the antenna and the transmitter was located, has had metal door handles, and apparently you go and touch the door handle, and next thing you know, you're picking yourself up on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of ionization going on there. So yeah, but it just shows you. But to me personally, chucking out from the top of there, we were only. I mean, the last day we transmitted, we might have slipped a bit and knocked up a little bit, But yeah, but to no, not with the power we were doing. No, but I have seen it. I've seen it happen. Yeah,
Mm.
you
You were
get
on
like a
about
corona.
Radio Caroline. This is a question from me then. Radio Caroline. You said that the ship parked itself up in the Isle of Man and was transmitting from
Hmm,
there. Were they able
hmm.
to sort of like get away with in harbour? I'm assuming. Do you mean in harbour?
No, no, they were
Oh,
off Ramsey Isle of Man, so I think they're
right.
5 miles off Ramsey Isle of Man. Now, this is the thing that happened with this. The Manx government were quite keen on keeping Radio Caroline where it was. So if you imagine you got Radio Caroline South pleasing everyone down in London, and then you've got Radio Caroline North of the Fredericia broadcasting to everyone in the north, really, sort of Ireland, everywhere else. So the Manx government were supplying them. They were quite keen for them to remain there because, of course, it was good for tourism. And of course, they'd just been living with a crap BBC programming, the same as every other bugger post-war had to.
Yeah.
Um, the Manx government actually, to a certain extent, read the Riot Act to Westminster and just said, look, we're keeping these people on. You want them off the air, you're going to have to get them off the air. And it was only the promise that they could have Ramsey radio, if you like, or Isle of Man radio on FM, that they actually allowed um, Caroline to sort of stay there. And I think there was the odd ship that went out after the marine offences, after 67 or August 67. There was the odd ship that must have gone out from Ramsey. Oh, some papers. Oh, yeah, I'll chuck you some milk on the deck, you know. So, I mean, so yeah, the Manx government were very keen for them to remain. And as I say, they carried on broadcasting off the Isle of Man and in the southern part of the Thames Estuary until February 68 when the Weissmuller Tug Company, I think they were owed thousands. And in the end, they're taking diabolical liberties. All right, that's when they towed them in. They towed both ships in. As soon as they got into harbour, I think they were writs and everything nailed to the masts. Um, and it was 1972, I believe, that they managed to snuffle the smaller ship, which was the Mi Amigo. They managed to snuffle that under cover of darkness, and it made its way out to the North Sea. And Radio Caroline came back on. That they used to they used to hire out airtime. I think there was Radio Mi Amigo. Uh, there were 2 or 3 stations that used to broadcast from the same ship, the Mi Amigo. And unfortunately, a very good friend of mine, Pete Chicago, he was there in 1979 when the Mi Amigo nearly sank, and they were having to pump all the water out of it. And he managed to save it then. And unfortunately, in 1980, during another storm, it finally met its demise and it sank. And that was the end of Caroline as we know it in 1980. But the mast that was on the top of the Mi Amigo was a hazard to shipping until about 1986. So it just shows you again the good workmanship in that area then. Because I say that's staying up in the middle of the sea for 6 years. That wasn't bad, was it? But I think there's been some scans done of the Mi Amigo, and apparently it's all sort of broken up or whatever now. But it'd be great to send some divers down there and sort of, bring up a few LPs and stuff. That'd be good.
Yeah. Somebody is
Yeah,
saying, is she moored up? And I'm assuming they're talking about Radio Caroline ship here in Hull
the
Harbour.
Ross
The Hull
could
Harbour, they're
be.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Have a Google. Just put in Ross Revenge location. It'll tell you where it is. It was down here for quite a while. It's quite funny because cheekily they put it up a creek on the upper creek, up this little creek off Medway, and they had it tied up on the side of this creek. And you look out the top of Radio Kent's studio, all you could see was the Ross Revenge sat there. So I thought that was quite poignant for them to do. 2 fingers up at the BBC, even then. But that was a good few years back now. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was good. Yeah,
Oh, some
yeah,
people have
brilliant.
donated to me via PayPal, so I'll say thank you to Kenneth Lown, Oliver Garford, Peter Pryor, Diane Jarrett, and Melissa Jones for your donations. Thank you very much. So,
Oh, marvelous.
yeah, they do look after us because I mean, like, we've got our generator bills, and it all goes in the car. Yeah, that's our
Yeah,
generator bills. So
yeah,
yeah.
it would do. Yeah, it would do with you, mate. Definitely. Yeah,
Mm.
I was lucky. Friday morning, I managed to blag a tank of fuel. I was getting down to the last dregs, and luckily, I was popping down the shop. It was up past 6 in the morning, and our little village garage. There's the bloody tanker sat there. I had one bloke in front of me. You all right, fill up? Yeah, of course, yeah. Lovely. So I managed to blag a tank of petrol, but the situation was becoming dire. I was going to sort of siphon the fuel out of my chainsaw. Get put it in the car.
Yeah. Well, I have gone into supermarkets and got sunflower oil and chucked that in the diesel. That works.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, mate of mine. Yeah, mate of mine did that. He's got all these. He had this like centrifuge thing that he was using, and he had to put this sort of additive in and whatever. But he had an old Audi A4. He was running on that chip fat for quite a while. But a
Yeah.
lot of buggering around. Save your fortune. If you get the oil, it's great. Saves your fortune, but a lot of buggering around. Very messy
Oh yeah.
buggering around as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I used to get like a sieve, like to sieve food out, and it was like, and I'd put toilet paper in there, and I'd pour a load in, and then have a funnel going into another one, and I just fill that up, and then come back in the morning, be empty, fill it up, and you just keep doing that, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up, and you just keep filling up containers until I got about 15
Yeah,
containers on the windowsill, and then they're all clean.
yeah,
And that's it. They just chuck them in the vehicle, and they go up in about 5 minutes, as fuel
great
does.
stuff.
You get about
Yeah.
I got
Did
about
you?
maybe 80 miles probably for my chip fat. So
Did you get enough for half a Savoy on the filters on the way through? Did you manage to build up a meal? It's enough
yeah,
for a meal there, you know. A
yeah.
bit, the odd
It,
scrap of this and that, you know.
if you ever try it, it's got the most wonderful aroma. It smells like a chip shop coming out your exhaust.
Yeah, yeah. We were stood behind his car, sort of going, go on, then, Del, rev it up,
Yeah,
then.
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, hey, brilliant, mate. Yeah, great stuff, great stuff.
going down the road, and
Yeah, all
and,
good
and
fun.
all the heads are turning. Everybody's getting hungry, So yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Did you get
Uh,
the stuff from the kebab shop? Oh dear.
yeah, yeah. So
Well,
Russell Jones is
well,
asked.
not cat.
Uh,
Sorry.
yeah. Oh, it's okay. Russell Jones is asking, did you have any special guests visit you on the forts?
Yes, we did. We had quite a few actually. I had a lovely day showing around. There's a guy with the big collars. What's his name? There's Jules Holland and Harry Hill.
Oh yes.
Harry Hill, excuse me. Yeah, Harry Hill and Jules Holland. That was good fun and sort of sort of people, your sort of reporters and stuff you recognise from the telly when I used to watch it and stuff. But the most salubrious people that I've taken out there, as I say, was those two, which was good. It's a bit of a shame because they were going to do us a benefit gig at the Marlow in Canterbury, and we thought, yeah, brilliant. Oh, thanks, guys, that's great. And as of most things, never heard another word. And this is the problem. You used to get people out there and they promise you the world, and then nothing forthcoming. Unfortunately, when he got there, the kitty was bare, and unfortunately, we didn't get any money coming in. That was the main problem.
Perhaps they were waiting for you to call them.
Yeah, let's give out. Oi, Harry, where's my bloody gig then, mate? Come on.
You said you were
Yeah,
going to
come on,
come
don't be
and do
lazing
us a
around.
gig. Come on.
Yeah, bloody lazy bastards, you know. I mean, especially Jules Holland. I mean, sitting there tinkling bloody ivories. He can come in and earn some bloody money for us, couldn't he? Bloody bloke. But no, both of them very nice people, actually. Very nice people.
Mm.
Harry Hill, I had an old Jag at the time, and Harry Hill had a Mark II, the same. And we were commenting how what a pain in the ass Mark II Jags were and stuff. So yeah, it was good. And we did him a good talk on the faults as well, and showed him round and whatnot, which was good. But we earned a bit of money doing that, doing the odd tour. But again, it's insurance is a problem out there, and it's all a bit, do you get to sign a disclaimer and whatnot, and it's
But I mean,
yeah,
even getting across there, like once you've covered your costs for hiring a boat to take you across and the fuel, and then to return and take you back, or to hire it to just stay there and then you get on it and go back. I mean, all that's going to cost hundreds of pounds, isn't it?
it was hundreds of pounds. Each trip cost hundreds of pounds. I think the price to us was a couple of £100. That was just in fuel. And I think Alan used to give a lot of his time for nothing, the tug skipper. But what a bloody boatman he was. I mean, we've had some, as of any time, we've had some sticky situations out there. And Alan always came through as being a bloody good helmsman, boatsman, and whatever. But the ex-pilot was such a great boat for it because you had two levels. You had like we saw an all deck level, then you had like a poop deck up the top. So depending on the level of the tide, you could always get stuff over. And he used to go along and sit alongside the fender in, and we had a little ginny wheel up the top, and all hands on the rope, and we used to haul stuff up. That was the way to do it. So yeah, we knew we had a winch as such. Winch was manpower, mate, but you could usually get enough. You could get enough people that would want to come out and work anyway. So that was all right. That was pretty good.
Yeah. So, I mean, you saw the state of it from my video, and that was how many
Mm.
years had it been since you've been out there? Because Was it?
I've not been out there. Must be 6 years now. Quite a
Yeah.
while, long time, about 6 years.
Had it
But I
changed
remember
much from what you saw in my video to how it was when you?
deteriorate, deterioration has accelerated. Um, I can't tell you. Um, I used to go out there. You'd go out there. You'd leave it a couple of months. Go out there 2 months later, and the amount of degradation, and it was just it was unbelievable, unbelievable. I think it's sort of, if you have a graph of how it's going along, so it's going on like this, and suddenly it accelerates. When
Yeah.
the paint has finally given up, there's no paint left on the bloody thing, and it really has got a hold of it. And there's rust holes, there's holes in the armor plate, the outer armor plate, but sort of northeasterly on G1 and that. There's big holes in it. You can see right through to the hardboard lining. But it's, as I say, it's only the outer walls that have gone. It's not the structure itself, but it just shows you. The other thing, there's an armored parapet around where the guns were. That was like a sandwich. It was a piece of quarter-inch armor plate, and then you had another piece of armor plate here. And then between, you'd have asphalt, which is basically tar, with all these big lumps of aggregate in it to make it bulletproof. So the guys on the top, if they took any fire from passing aircraft, would be protected by this. Now, this is a great idea, but unfortunately, what's happened now is the armor plate has rusted away, and it's all fallen into the sea. I think some guys were out. Alan, the tug skipper, was telling me about this. There was on the control tower. There was another little landing between the legs. And if you look on older pictures, you'll see there was a bloody great big winch that used to be there. And the guys were out there. They heard a horrendous great big bang. And that must have been a ton and a half of steel going down and ending up in Davy Jones's, mate. So yes, a lot of time has reached a stage out there. It's critical, and only time will save those towers. And it's such a shame. It really is such a shame. Um, Again, I think you mentioned once about them being listed because they're offshore. They can't be listed. And the only other problem you've got is if you list something, you have to have then a schedule of works with time of when you're going to have certain jobs completed. That's the idea of listing something, unless you're a local council, when you just leave it to fall down. And then when it's all right, it's got so bad now, we can pull it down now. Just wait 5 years with a listed building, don't they? That's what they do. But yeah, so there was no hint of anything being listed or anything out there at all. So we did have a schedule of works, and as I say, it'd be interesting to see what's happening now. Actually, be interesting to see. But as I say, we always had something to do out there. There's always something to get up to.
Jackie
Mm.
Green, thanks for your donation towards the fuel. Thanks very much. And yeah, so
Jackie Green and the cats.
Jackie Green and her cats, yes, because
Is it? Oh, Jackie
Phil
Green.
actually watches the channel. By the way, if anybody didn't know, Phil already knew about the channel and was quite surprised to see when
Oh,
the
I'm mad on it. I'm mad
yeah
on it. This is why you were down in those doing the faults down into Solent there, and I thought it's only going to be a matter of time. He's going to be round at Redsands, and here he is. I thought as
yeah
soon as he gets round to Redsands, I'll email the old bugger
yeah.
see if I can give you some information and be of any help or assistance. Of course, yes, of course, yeah, marvelous, all good fun. But no, all your wartime bunker exploits and stuff. Of course, you've been on my radar for quite some time, Mr. Williams. We've been
Oh
watching you, you know. Oh yes.
yes.
I
Well, that's
I,
good.
I even hit like sometimes.
A few people have said to me, "Is about you coming on tonight?" And the first thing they said is, "Oh, it's nice to have somebody who's not going to like chew you out." You know, it's like, why have you been to this place? You shouldn't be there. Why are you doing this? And of course, Phil's not like that. He's a really nice chap. So yeah, it is nice
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm an arsehole. I'm an arsehole. I'll kick the cat sometimes, but that's about the state of it. I mean, there's only one below me, and that's the cat. You know,
yeah.
everything's above from me, and they all kick my ass. So there you go.
And I mean, when you think of the spirit of the pirates who went there in the first place and were up on those things, I mean, it's all about just getting out there and doing it. If you don't get out there.
Yeah,
So
enjoy while you can, but I will say to your viewers, as I've said to you, it is a dangerous place.
Mm,
Very, very dangerous. I'm not just saying that, it's dangerous. Sharp edges, you ain't seen nothing like it, mate. There's nothing like a rusting piece of armor plate to ruin your day. I mean, I've been hanging off the top of that walkway with a settling torch in my hand and stuff, but I'm buggered if I'd ever do that again. You know,
mm,
it's only when people took a photograph of me up there doing it, you think, good Lord, you prat. Only one slip, you know. It is dangerous. And as for the currents out there, I say there's been a lot of people have lost their lives out there. And I mean, you've seen the current. I mean, I've stood on the landing stage of the fort and looked down just after slack tide when the old tide starts up again. And I look down there and I think you wouldn't stand a chance if you were in there. You've had it. You're in that water. You've had it. And it ain't the temperature; it's the current. I mean, for that body to be in 1964, that Martin Shaw to be taken from the tower and found on the north coast of Spain, it gives you an idea. I mean, the towers may have degraded a bit, but the bloody current isn't. It's as strong as ever. But
yeah.
yeah, it's like someone standing in Margate and pulling a plug out. It's the only way I can describe it. It's dangerous. It's not like the Solent. You don't get that kind of current in the Solent because for some reason, when the Thames is emptying and filling up again, the current really is quite something. It is
Mm.
something. But
Yeah, mind you,
yeah,
in the Solent, I mean, it has been quite rough. I mean, sort of like and it does move in, and sort of move out. It changes, and you got to hide sometimes behind those spit forts to kind of like stay out of it because you turn your engine off and like a couple of minutes later there it is in the distance. Like it's quite
you start drifting,
mm,
gone.
yeah.
Oh yeah, gone. I remember it was one of the worst days of my life. I went out there with Mandy, who was my crewmate. We went out with Alan, and it's when the problem with 2 years of the radio station running out there, the original fendering sticking up, the wartime fendering, unfortunately decided to give up the ghost, which fair enough. We've been bashing against it with that tug for 2 years, fair go. And it took us a couple of years to raise the money to get the fendering that's up there now put up. But I never forget going up the day that we're installing that, and I noticed every other bugger's made a beeline for the dinghy and have gone over. So I'll go on the tower. I'll do the stuff on the tower. Yeah, all right. They looked at the weather, hadn't they? Yeah. When I know I was sitting out there and anchoring this tug, a bloody force 8, isn't it? I've never been to sick in all my life. The only thing I could eat was a frayed bentos mince and onion pie. And if I even see a frayed bentos pie now, mate, it's like
Oh yeah.
awful, awful. Yeah,
Yeah.
awful stuff. Yeah, but yeah, we spent a good day and a half out there at anchor, and oh god, it was awful, absolutely awful. But they got the fendering up, which was good. No, they got the
Mm.
fendering up,
I mean,
which was the object of the exercise.
what sort of size waves did you see going past there? Like and did you see some pretty big ones?
Well, I've seen waves breaking, and the waves will hit the walkway at the bottom of the town. What's that? 50 foot up. You know, you get some real big ones up there. I mean, they'll get the deck wet, easy stuff. Yeah, easy. But you know, you don't fear for your life up there, but it's not the most pleasant place to be in a storm force gale, no. But at least it's not bobbing around like a bloody boat is. That's the
Yeah.
thing. At least you've actually you're stable. You know, you move about a little bit, but you're on a boat like that. It's like no, oh God, no.
Well, has anybody else got any more questions? Because we got 20 minutes to go, so we'll sort of start sort of wrapping things up. Because I did say 2 hours. We try and keep to 2 hours, and sometimes it becomes five. But yeah, so somebody was asking, I can't remember the name, but they were saying, how long do you think they're going to last? Which is he's kind of answered, but how long do you think they're really going to last? If they're not looked after.
Personally, there'll be something there for hundreds of years. There will be something there for hundreds of years. I can tell you that for nothing. Especially with the naval forts as well. I mean, they blew up. Sunkhead Fort was blown up by the Royal Engineers just after the Marine Defences Bill came in. The Royal Engineers went out there when it was unoccupied and blew it up, really to deter other people from getting back onto the forts and starting radio stations again. They blew that up, and anyway, you've got on the naval forts, you've got the two pillars that come out the sea with the deck across the top.
Mm.
Where they blew this up, they've still got the two legs are still sticking up.
Oh,
and they're
right.
still getting there's still regular claims for compensation. I think a gas carrier hit them sometime. Hit them. I mean, it's definitely down to poor bloody navigation, if you ask me. But apparently, there was a big claim put in for damage to this gas carrier that had hit these two legs that are sticking up. You've got Tungsand's fault. I think there's a leg sticking up from that. That's the only one that has fallen into the sea naturally. That one, that was when it was plonked down at the seabed, they got it round the wrong way. And what happens is when you get water travelling one way, it's okay. When it's travelling across it, it does what they call scouring. So it'll sort of dig away underneath on the other side, if you like. Of course, it did that. The concrete pontoon then was unstable. It got a bit of a list on it, and they abandoned that. I think 1948 as an emergency one night. Who's fallen into the sea? God damn it! Look at it. And that for years sat with a precarious list like this. One of the legs was breaking off like that, and it took again. It was a false 10, I think, and it finally succumbed and fell into the sea in 1996. So I think if they'd have pronounced emergency in 1948 or wherever it was, I think they had plenty of time to get off. It didn't fall into the sea till 96. So,
Mm.
but that's been the only one that's fallen in naturally. Was Tungsands off Margate. As I say, going back to the army forts, the Nore was taken out as a hazard to shipping. Redsands is all complete with its 7 towers, and Shivering Sands is all there, bar G2, which was hit by a ship in 1963. But due to the fact there was no one on there, no one was hurt, so that was okay then.
Mm.
There you go.
And with GPS these days, and they should have a map system working on bigger ships anyway, especially at night or in fog. I mean,
Oh, it's down to
you
stupidity, isn't it?
yeah, you shouldn't be hitting things like that. I do know people who've gone out in boats without any sort of like marine map, and they do stand to get bloody stuck on something if they're not careful. But you know,
Yeah, I mean, used to get the height of the summer, and used to get people coming past us on jet skis.
mm,
Coming past us on jet skis, and they were still going. And I think, you bunch of prats. Honestly, the weather can change it. Honestly, I've been stood up there in beautiful sunlight, and seriously, 20 minutes later, it's been howling gale. The sea's got up and everything. 20 minutes, mate, that's all it takes. And going out there on a jet ski, that is just idiotic. I think
yeah.
it's idiotic.
No, I
And
do.
so
I
it's
do
not just
check.
that.
I do check the weather and look what it's been doing and what it's going to do. Like I try and check so it's not going to kind of catch us out too much. But
Yeah, so
yeah.
when we're out on board out there, we always kept we got an FM radio, and it was always kept on the Port of London hailing channel,
Mm,
just to, because occasionally they'd send you a message or whatever. But they were quite good. The Port of London and stuff were ever so good. If we were down, say, working on the fendering or whatnot, you had a big container ship on its way to Tilbury. They'd send out a message to all ships coming into the Thames Estuary to throttle back as um, work's been carried out on Redsands, and most of them they should slow right down for us, which was good. Because I tell you, you caught a bloody bow wave or caught the wash off one of those container ships down there. I mean, we've been on the tug, and it's nearly capsized the bloody thing. You catch that right, and it was like right over like this bloke had, but luckily you could see it coming. You saw it, wave coming, incoming, and you sort of
mm,
go and lash yourself down quick. But luckily, we never had any deaths out there, which was good. But a few injuries, but nothing serious.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Vivian Baker has sent a donation. Thank you very much. She says it's been amazing to listen. She says, Big J
Oh,
Viv, Big J Viv. So I don't know. That must be
good
her
on you, big.
name. Big J Viv.
Good on you,
Yeah.
big David. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
that must be Viv Senior. I don't know where Viv Minor's gone.
Oh right, yeah, yeah. So yeah. So any other little memories? Any things that ever happened whilst you were out there? Did anybody ever get injured and
Oh,
have
out
to
there.
get taken back to
No,
shore? Like emergencies or little
no,
things
not
like that.
really. You get the odd cut and bang and bosh and this sort of stuff, but it's usually stuff like that. You've got so much adrenaline running through your veins when you're out there doing stuff that you don't feel it till the morning after. then you get up and you think, good Lord, I've really done that to my leg, but no, nothing, no real emergency or anything out there. But as I say, it's just that the last few times I went out, just seeing the amount of decay and how it's accelerating out there is phenomenal. As I say, it's reached that stage now where it really is accelerating. So any donations to the project would be gratefully received. I
Yeah,
would
if
like the
anybody,
video as well.
yes, if anybody's interested in helping out with the project, getting involved or donating, do get
Yep.
involved. But it needs people that are going to get hands on as well. That's very important. So, but
Yeah.
Phil, did you tell me you got stuck out there one time because you were due to be picked? Am I
Oh,
thinking you
during
were
the
due to be?
radio.
Yeah, and you
Yeah,
got stuck
it
out
was
there
on the
for an
radio.
extended
Yeah.
period, and you couldn't be brought back because the weather was too bad.
No, no, the weather was bloody awful. We couldn't. We were sort of starting. It was getting quite exciting. We were running sort of lower water and things like that. But no, it kicked off. The weather kicked off in a squall, and this squall lasted sort of 2 or 3 days. It was, and we were out there, and then the boat couldn't come out. And in the end, I've never been so happy to see this boat bobbing up to the horizon. Basically, it's like it's got fags on it and beer and things like that. It was marvelous. They're quite commodities. It's you run out of tobacco out there or run out of beer out there, you're buggered. You can't exactly sort of pop out on down the local co-op, can you, when you're out there? So it used to be quite fun with people crying, "You got any fags?" But the other time is good fun is when you get the some of the old what I call gym palaces, these yachts that some people have got, they're more money than sense. And one of them tied up one day. We were out just scouting about on the towers. We told dump us out for the day, pop out on the evening tide and pick us up. So we were out there, and there was this ship, and they were sitting on their deck like that, and we were out on the tower with our heads poking off the side of it like that. And it's like, don't do it yet, don't do it yet. And in the end, we went, hello, down there. And I've never seen a bloke jump as high as that bloke did on that boat. He didn't know we were there. So you imagine sitting sort of 12 miles out to sea, no bugger about like that, and suddenly you get this, hello. And you look up, and there's these bloody ne'er-do-wells hanging off this bloody tower, roughly tower. So, you got any more gin? Got any tobacco? Got any supplies? Yeah, so we had some good times out there. But no, there's on a summer evening when the sun's going down, there's no better place to be than sit on the deck of gun deck one with a beer in your hand with your mates. There's nothing like it. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. So I enjoyed my time out there. Marvelous.
Yeah. Rapid Man is saying anyone fall off. Now, you did tell me a bit of a story about somebody who actually killed himself, accidentally out there, wasn't it?
Oh, the chap. Yeah, it's a very much a tragedy. My thoughts go out to his family even now. We had some visitors. This is going back a few years now. Again, if you ask Mr. Google, I dare say he'll be able to enlighten you with the facts such as dates, etc. But a couple of chaps from Ramsgate came out and got onto the towers, or got onto our tower. They were up having a whale of a time. I think they're having a barbecue up on the top of the gun deck. Now they'd gone out there on a high tide. They tied their little ship, little boat up to the side of the fender in, and they hadn't kept an eye on the line. And of course, as the tide's gone down, the boat's gone like this, like this, like this, and eventually the rope's gone donk. Boat has disappeared on the aforementioned current. These two Herberts that were stood up on top of the gun tower looked out and they said, shit, there's our boat. They've gone immediately down onto the landing stage. One of them has jumped in the water and he was picked up, as I say, about 6 hours later, unfortunately. Yeah, and they picked the boat and everything up. The problem is if you've got a boat sat here and you're sat here, he's just going to do this. It doesn't matter how hard you do, you're not going to get near your boat. And even if you could get to your boat, you wouldn't have the, believe me, you wouldn't have the strength to pull yourself out of there and get on that boat. Like, it's all one and good saying, yeah, if it's in a swimming pool, you might do it. But when you're out there, mate, no chance. It's not going to happen. You've had it. And unfortunately, the guy lost his life. One of our visitors, unfortunately. And his friend was picked up by helicopter. The search and rescue went out, and unfortunately they picked his friend up. But yeah, unfortunately that chap lost his life. So it really does show you how just how dangerous it is out there. Unfortunately, that yeah, if you haven't got your wits about you, you don't know what you're doing. Don't go out there, for God's sake. Please don't. Please
Mhm.
don't.
Yeah,
Very, very dangerous.
that is one way that people could get to explore, would be a helicopter, but they'd have to know a pilot who'd be prepared to put a sort of a foot down on the thing and then come back and pick you up, because that's not easy flying on such a small sort of
We
thing.
No, we did approach. This is going back a long time now. We did approach a few local helicopter people, and there was a couple that would do it. But you're talking thousands. You're talking, oh yeah, I'll run you out there, and yeah, 6 grand, £6,000. So it was thousands of pounds. You won't get a helicopter out there for a couple of £100, believe me.
Mm.
So yeah, we didn't do it. But out on Redsands, as I say, I'd love to get up on Gun Tower 3 G3, because that's the Radio 390 studio. And as far as we know, no one's been out on that tower, possibly since the late 60s, early 70s. The last photograph we got of that, the equipment's all been removed, but the console, where as you could see where it all was, where the
Mm.
record decks were, where the sliders and everything were, and yeah, the whole of the floor was just covered in records. So it must have been Russ Conway and stuff that they'd left there, nothing decent. Vince Hill, Russ Conway, and that all over the floor, And that was the
Mm-hmm.
last time that we've seen in there. But the BBC went out there about, oh, bloody hell, must be 15 years ago now. And they were going to get up on G3. They got the wrong bloody tower. They got on G4, didn't they? But there was a guy that used to run Radio 3, and I know, called John Ross Bernard. And he was reunited with his bed, which was one
Ah.
thing. The BBC got up there. They found because that was the sleeping area for 390 jocks, and they found his bed and gave him back his headboard that still had the same stickers on the end of it. Apparently, I don't think he was moved to tears, but he was definitely moved anyway. Yeah, but he chucked in the tip on the way through, but apparently he'd left it there in the 60s. But yeah, that was a shame. So yeah, G3 is the one. Get up and have a look on. But that's the thing with that Danger Man episode. There's no interior shots apart from one where Patrick McGowan has jumped in the sea and he's coming back onto the tower. He goes up the ladder and he walks past the original fog warning equipment. This was there. It was all run by compressed air, and that fell into the sea. I think about 1990 that finally succumbed and dropped in. That was the last one. Shivering Sands had fallen off a few years before, but they used to have a foghorn warning. It was like a brrr, before GPS and lots of radar. And that was a foghorn that used to be on there. And Patrick McGowan walks past that, so we know what that looks like now. There's another shot of him when he comes up through the legs and he's walking out towards the catwalk. And that's the only what we call interior shots on that Danger Man. But the rest of it, as I say, is absolutely great because you can see all the walkways, how they were, and whatnot. They're marvellous. And when they're chucking the dummy off the top, it's quite fun as well. But there we are. But there's some pictures going back to our late chairman, Robin Adcroft. There's some photographs of him. He was only 17 and he visited all the pirate ships and Redsands. And there's pictures of him on Redsands in 1967, which is good. He went out there with a friend, but how he managed to do it at the age of 17, because I mean, there were fans writing to the ship saying, "Oh, can we come on and have a look?" This sort of stuff. No, sorry, you can't. But Robin managed to get on all the ships, and before he died, he told me what all the different ships were like and whatnot. I say my interest do span to other things
He
as well as
probably
Red Town.
he probably got off his arse and actually got a boat to get out there. I mean, if you make the effort, I'm sure they would have welcomed you on board. But if you're writing to him, expecting him to like send you out a taxi driver to bring you from Manchester all the way down and lay on a boat for you, it's like it isn't going to happen. No.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, mate. Even to this day, there's that kind of mentality about.
Oh yeah, they
Yeah,
people just think that well, I wouldn't say maybe Jim will fix it is a bad one to use the analogy now these days, but
now then. Oh,
I'd like to get onto those forts, please. Yeah,
guys and girls.
yeah.
Sorry.
So ALW. Oh, sorry. ALW, our friend, is saying Did the ships slash forts ever run out of food or generator fuel? Did they ever run out?
Not as such. I think they got low from time to time. From what I've read about the memoirs of certain details on the North ship, what with it being anchored off Ramsey, of course, it was a bugger to get supplies to it. And I think that there were times when they were severely low on essentials like beer and fags and stuff. Yes, definitely. Again, during the 70s, Radio North Sea International and stuff, sometimes stuff wasn't sent out. The problem is, of course, you've got a load of demoralized DJs and stuff. You don't get very good radio output. So generally, they did look after them, as I say, because they're going to suffer in the end because the quality of their shows is going to go down the pisser. And and of course, they're not going to get their advertising revenue all told in the end. So to a certain extent, they did look after them. And of course, if the transmitters aren't running, they're not earning money. So there you go.
Yeah. You don't want to
That was the thing.
you don't want to use the transmitters, the main transmitters, to call out SOS, do you? Like, send us some food. That would have been
I hate
fun.
to say it. I hate to say it, but it has been done. Radio North Sea International, I think 1970, 71. I don't know what it was all about, but there was another station called Radio Veronica, and the owner of Radio Veronica had fallen out with Radio North Sea, and it reached a stage one night. They nipped out there on a boat at 10 o'clock at night. All the crew were either watching television or dirty movies, and the DJ, of course, was presenting his show, and they managed to set a fire in the engine room. And it wasn't until the place was well and truly alight that they put an SOS and Mayday out over medium wave for someone to come and help them. And luckily, they managed to get the fire under control. But that's quite well documented. You might even find that on YouTube. But I've got it on. I've got an LP record with it on somewhere. I don't know where it is. But it's quite gripping. You know, the guys on on this tug were threatening to pull the ship in, and they were going to put a water cannon on them. That's the worst thing they could do. If they put a water cannon on that ship when it's transmitted, they'd have electrocuted everyone on the tug. So they had to announce over the air, if you're going to put that jet on here, prepare to die, because you will die because you're going to get electrocuted. So they didn't play in the end play that water jet over the aerial, but it was threatened. So yeah, so there's been times in the pirate radio history when things have been broadcast over the air, which perhaps should have been done ship to shore, let's say. But yeah, it's better to say that the whole idea of watery wireless, as I call it, is a fascinating one, definitely. And if you think about people who are into trains and steam trains, I think that pirate radio and radio enthusiasm in general is only one stage up from that. So hence I've been a little bit careful not to completely bore all your viewers this evening.
Well, you've done really well. Both of us, like, we haven't had to go and have a break. We just carried on, but it is coming up to the end. It's coming up to 2 hours long. But is there anything else?
I busted for a piss.
Oh, do you want to? If you've got anything you want,
I'm only joking.
No, well, I go off for one. So we're not the BBC, you know.
Yeah, I've seen the films, Devil. I've seen the films. Yeah. So quite your salubrious visits to the lavatory, if you like, have been well documented, you know.
Yeah.
And I shall never get that. I'll never get that. It's tattooed to my memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think you cut it out, mate? I saw the first cut before it was.
Oh, great!
And you know what I'm talking about.
What you mean? I was caught short, and I went in front of my camera that night.
Well,
sort of.
There was that night, and also there was that that night actually on here, I believe it was, when you fetched your skirts up. We saw rather more than we should have done.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. Yeah. Demonetization was ruined, it said, so you cut that bit out, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah, I do make some mistakes sometimes, yeah. Because I mean, like sometimes I am tonight actually wearing trousers. I mean, I can show you. Well, you can't see them, but they are there. Look, it's trousers.
Oh, that's good.
Trousers.
That's good.
But yeah, you know, not every night, especially in the summer, You know, I go a bit sort of commando, and yeah, as I'm sure many of those DJs on those hot
Oh,
surf
indeed,
forts probably would have done. They'd have been sitting
indeed.
there in their underpants doing transmissions.
Yeah, that's the thing though. I mean, people don't see you, do they, end of a mic? So you'd be surprised, I think, what used to go on. You know. Oh yeah, used to go on. Oh, it's one of my favourite ones when the DJs were on the when we did the RSLs. We had a couple of DJs on there, and I'll go and make a cup of tea, and you'd be stood up. They'd be sort of like quite straight laced going on. Blah blah blah. That was blah 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 with blah 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 blah, and they got me right beside them going, "Wow, like that, you like that, mate," and see if you could see if they kept a straight face. And most of them were professional enough too, and they
Mm.
then passed the test, and they'd be handed a cup of tea. But yeah, it was quite good fun actually trying to sort of get them to put them off their stride, you know, with
Yeah.
various gestures, etc. Yeah, it's good,
Oh
real good
yeah.
fun. But
Trying to get him to
yeah,
burst it, you know, trying to get him to laugh, you know. Yeah, that's a good one with broadcasters, trying to sort of catch their
yeah,
attention and sort of get them to go
yeah,
wrong, and they'd be like, "What's that?"
yeah.
You know, yeah.
No, that's
I'm
quite
gonna
fun.
put
I thought we were. Hmm?
I'm gonna put the link there.
Sorry, mate.
I've just put a link for the Danger Man episode, because if people want to know a little bit more about what these things used to look like when they were
Yeah.
running, that is a
Mm.
great way to actually see it, because they've got the platforms they walk between the
Got the cat walks up. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
So that's there, and they've got the transmitter. You can see this 200-foot high transmitter. It's all part of the show. I
Yep.
believe they cut away to film studios when they were actually inside. You know, it wasn't filmed
Yeah,
because
they
those
did. Yeah.
rooms are too small.
Yeah. The equipment they were using, of course, was all authentic. I mean, they had Garrard 401 record decks, whereas 39 used the earlier version of 301. But all the equipment there, the Ferrograph tape recorder and all the console and that is all true to form of what it would have been in the 60s. They got that right, definitely. And funnily enough, the lady who's playing the lady DJ is a lady called Patsy Ann Noble. And she was a bit of a legend in her own time. And the He Who Rides the Tiger was the single being played at the end of the episode was actually released as a single. I've got it. It took me about 10 years to find it, but I found it eventually. Patsy Ann Noble, He Who Rides the Tiger. The rest of the music on there was done by, I think it was two session musicians, and it's all went, oh, this is the Zephyrs with so and so, and this is the blah blah blah. It was all done by two guys in one day in a studio, and they were just session musicians. I think again, there's a dark corner of the interweb that you'll find information on all the different records that are in there and how the guy managed to get hold of the recordings of them. A lot of them were just done on acetate, so we never actually came to records. A lot of those they were just done for that episode of Danger Man, which I think is quite fascinating. You know,
Mm,
there you go. When I research, I like to leave no stone left unturned. And if you're
no,
going to bore with it, you might as well bore for Britain, mate.
well, if anybody wants to get a hold of a decent copy of that Danger Man, you know, you can either buy it, or you know, you could speak to this man, because he's offered a better copy.
Yeah.
But for now, if anybody needs to see it, it is on YouTube, and I would say it's actually acceptable. I would say it is, you know, acceptable to
It's
watch.
watchable, yeah.
Yeah.
It's watchable, but it just made me laugh when his autofocus was going from somebody's ass that was walking across the screen 60 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be laughing. Yeah, the autofocus, yeah, it's going pats our Noble's backside. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. No, I thought we were going to have Jordan and that on tonight, you see. So,
Well,
but
I haven't asked anyone else in, because I thought, you know, you're going to have enough to say, and I thought it'd be, you know, you'd be keeping interest. So all really anybody would be doing is just asking you a few more questions, which you know,
all right. Oh,
everybody on the chat has done. So
yeah, I'll have to come on a normal night one night. I'll see if I can come on and make some fun as well. I
yeah,
like making people laugh.
pop on when we're doing a normal chat if you want. Yeah.
But it's
Okay.
B-face computing, yay!
Be face ting. You've got to put
Yeah,
more
I
emphasis
can't do
into
it.
each syllable. Yeah.
B-face computing,
That's the one, yeah, yeah.
B-face computing,
Computing!
yay!
Yeah. Throw
Well,
the
good as my
shoulders.
love anyway.
Puting! Yeah,
Pudding,
yeah.
bloody
So,
brilliant that. Yeah,
yeah. Oh, he'd be glad to know that you've been watching him. So yeah,
He's got one, at least one. He's got one fan at least.
one subscriber. Yeah, that's it. So
Mm.
here we go. Well, I
Yeah.
suppose it's about time to think about wrapping it up. Really, we've done 2 hours, and I know there are
All right, mate. Yeah.
some friends of mine who've got some premieres on, which I'm going to probably watch in a little bit. And
Okay.
so, thank you very much for coming on. And if we get any more questions, we can always pass them across to you. And if people want to get hold of you, if people want to get
Yeah.
hold
Go
of
through,
you,
yeah.
how can they email you or get in touch with you somehow?
I can put my email on my YouTube if you like. I don't run a channel as such. I've had
No.
to buy all this crap to do tonight. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll put my thing down there, or just drop Matt a line, and he's got my details. So,
Yeah,
not a
you're
problem.
on. This is actually your YouTube. If somebody went through to that, would it have your email address on that? Radio 390 Redsands, or is just that's the
I haven't
name
put it
you
on there yet.
created for your?
I
It's
can put it on.
just
No, it's my YouTube name, but I can put it on my profile if you like. I didn't put an email on there, but I can do.
well, there you are. If you go through to his YouTube, which is actually Radio 390 Redsands, then you'll see how to contact him. If you give me your email address as well, then I will put it on this video so people can contact you that way if they want. So there we go.
That sounds like a plan, mate.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. Great. Okay, I'm going to have my dinner now.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, don't let me stop you. But people are all saying, great show, really enjoyed it. One of the best so far. Need to do more of these. They're all loving it. So yeah, you didn't
Well,
bore
if
anyone.
you if you need me on again for the same thing, I'll come on. But I can offer my advice and sympathy for a lot of subjects, not just pirate radio and sea forts. We do other things,
Mm.
Do gardening slot if you like about that.
Oh, that would probably be where I draw the line. Actually, yes.
Oh, yeah, okay. You don't
Oh
want to
God,
put me hollyhocks for doing.
gardening. Oh my God, no, that's far too fascinating for me. But
No, no.
we'll put you in touch with
I,
somebody we know who's probably got a gardening channel somewhere. But yeah,
oh, that's good. Yeah.
not for me. Yeah, thank you.
I get a little man in who does mine.
Oh
He
right.
comes along, he comes along, trims me up, and does me rhododendrons, and then he might mow the lawn as well. Bloody
All
good.
right. Well, that's it. I mean,
Cheap tool.
that would be how I would like to deal with gardening: is get somebody else to do it. Not my cup of tea.
Ah,
I do mow the
marvellous
lawn
stuff.
though. Yeah, and
Yes,
I know
you
to
must mow
chop.
the lawn.
I know to chop things down, but I don't know how to make them grow very much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do gardening if it's got an engine on it. I'm your man. If it hasn't got an engine, forget it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I prefer
Yeah,
things that
gardening
are
takes engine.
motorized. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Got to be
Yeah.
motorised.
Well, anyway, right. Well, we better let you get off for your tea, and we'll all say thank you to Phil Shephard.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you
Absolute
very
pleasure.
much. And
And
to
please, you must say Radio 390.
Radio
Every bloody
390 shutting down for the night. Thank you
jolly good.
and
Carry on,
good night.
subscriber. Carry on.
Good
Carry
night,
on.
everybody. Good night.
Carry on.